Welcome to Warframe Weapon of the Week, also known as WoW, where we cover weapons that I've been having tons of fun with or that I think are particularly strong. I'm going to cover some upsides and downsides with the weapon, show you some gameplay, builds, use cases, and give it a place in a massive tier list we're going to be building video by video. Like, sub, hype, whatever. I love you guys lots. Thank you so much for your viewership, and let's begin with the Perigale. The Perigale is a sniper rifle that seems to have this kind of clunky LMG Gatling gun looking appearance, which will make a lot more sense in a moment. This video is going to cover the Perigale specifically, but the same concepts apply over to the Prime. It's just the main difference is ribbon disposition. DE refuses to balance ribbon disposition and with new weapons in in any way that feels satisfying, which is super frustrating. So if you do have a ribbon like myself, it's best to use the standard Perigale, as that disposition is going to give you better stats on your ribbon. Otherwise, opt for the Prime. It's just got better, damage-based numbers and some extra ammo in both the magazine and in the reserve, which is actually quite helpful for the Perigale. Usually not a relevant stat you care about, but in this case I would say it is. The Perigale boasts really solid damage stats, being excellent with crit, as most snipers are. They kind of upfront sniper damage, right? But it does have enough status chance to make use of some statuses like blast and gas a little bit. You're gonna really want those on the sniper rifle, but the low status chance does hurt this weapon a lot and makes it feel a lot less fun to use. It's got a 12 round magazine with a very tiny 24 ammo max. Kind of problematic in some ways, but we'll move on to why it's not a huge issue, with the Prime that upgrades to 16 and 64 max, which is pretty good. The Perigale fires in 4-round bursts while aimed down sights, and has a very lengthy 3-second reload time, which is insane. When you fire from the hip, though, the bullets spread out evenly in a horizontal line. It's a feature I've never really used before. It usually just uses the standard aim down sights burst. The burst makes it a lot better against corpus nullifiers than the traditional sniper rifle, especially if you don't really have the prowess to shoot the little nullifier drones that fly around. Being able to take out a nullifier and basically, or the nullifier shield in one volley of 4 bullets is pretty nice. The reload speed and the max ammo and the magazine, it all kind of sounds like a bit of a nightmare, right? But luckily the Perigale's unique trait is why this weapon excels. Upon landing a headshot kill or landing all 4 rounds onto the head of an enemy with a volley, the weapon gains Gale Force, its own unique buff that gives it 100% ammo efficiency for 4 seconds, meaning if you continue to land headshots over and over, you can have infinite ammo very, very accessibly. This means buffs like fire rate are disproportionately better on the Perigale, as it means you can just kind of turn this thing into a bullet hose that deals sniper rifle levels of damage with the fire rate of an LMG. It's very funny, and the ammo of an LMG essentially, right? Gale Force is the reason this weapon is even remotely good, but it does kind of lead to some downsides, along with some downsides that the weapon kind of already has. The Perigale has a number of downsides, but none that you wouldn't expect, right? It is still a sniper rifle, so the snipers do get access to cool mods. You get sharpshooter, target acquired. You have an easier time with things like acuity, galvanized scope, bladed rounds, all that good stuff. But they generally just don't do as well in Warframe's current fast-paced, AoE-centric environment. You're gonna need the Warframe synergies or elementals like blast and gas to have this weapon really excel, and that's modding space that is just mathematically inefficient for the Perigale to invest in due to its low status chance. We'll talk about it more in modding, but additionally, I do have to acknowledge that marksmanship is absolutely a must with the Perigale. Very rare in Warframe are you punished for missing. It's not a real thing most of the time, but if you are not prepared to land 70 to 80% of your shots to the enemy's dome piece, you will not have fun with this weapon, and you and that 3-second reload speed that I mentioned, you guys are going to become best of friends. They're going to be feeling that animation very, very often. I understand that some of my viewers play on console, on the Switch, even on mobile, right? And that makes this weapon exceptionally harder to get value out of. The biggest downside of the Perigale, in my opinion though, and one that is just pretty frustrating, is that it does have an anti-synergy with Sniper Combo, right? Sniper Combo is a pretty solid way to get more damage out of a kind of slept-on class of weapons. That it's a unique mechanic that makes snipers stick out. But because the Perigale fires in bursts of 4 rounds, and missed shots degrade the combo counter, if you land a lethal first-round headshot, which with a good build you will, the rest of the rounds usually miss and cause you to get really nothing out of the mechanic. You'll gain the combo from the first headshot, and the 3 excess rounds will just basically degrade your combo. You still get obviously the scoped crit damage bonus, which is unique from snipers, and the combo can work with extra effort. If you have a build that has a little less upfront damage but more status, you're going to be able to build up that combo a little more effectively, but at that point you're trading damage in a really weird way that can feel super unsatisfying. All right, let's move on to the building process. I do have a few builds here, and again, you don't have to copy this build band for band. The goal is to kind of teach you what mods I use, what mods I think are really strong, and the kind of concepts you're applying. So with the Perigale, and again, the Perigale Prime follows in the same footsteps, you are trying to get as much upfront damage as you can, while also trying to balance getting blast or gas onto the weapon. Now, you don't have to get blast or gas, but it makes this weapon significantly easier to use and less stressful. Again, up to you. But the problem is the Perigale does have, I think, 16% base status chance in the regular, and then 20% on the prime. Don't have a word for that, but it's about that, which means that when you invest these thermite rounds, this rhyme rounds mod, right, you have this issue where, like, you're adding little bits of damage, and then the status chance, you get so little out of it because the base number is so low. It's just mathematically inefficient, but you need blast somehow, right? I have a video covering, you know, I wish mods were added to the game that made this less of a problem. That's a lot of where this comes from. So here's my ribbon. Acuity is really quite strong in my opinion. Again, multi-shot I think is better with blast, so I do have multi-shot here, along with the rifle elementalist for the blast damage, which isn't totally required. Like, you could definitely replace this with like hammer shot, I think would be a decent option. But status damage is a really strong multiplier, and so I keep it there. Bladed rounds, galvanized scope. These mods are only used when you're aiming down sights, but with a sniper you're always aiming down sights, which is really strong. Galvanized aptitude, if you have a primer of any sort, this is how you get your like 50 million, 100 million bullets really easily if you have just like a primey pet, which I use quite often. Again, snipers are about doing that like insane upfront damage, and galvanized aptitude is definitely going to help you get that. I use Deadhead here. There's a number of options, right? Like if you're using armor frame, bulwark, what is it, frostbite is actually really not a bad choice here at all if you are utilizing multi-shot, because when you're using scope, it's like insanely easy to over invest into critical chance, and so what frostbite can do is give you that critical damage instead, along with the multi-shot, which helps blast. I could definitely see a world where if you were able to get stack frostbite off a companion or whatever, frostbite could be a better choice here, but I just love the plus 30% the headshot multiplier. I think it's really strong. Again, basically vital sense, crit damage, shocker, right? Like really basic mods here. Galvanized chamber in the multi-shot build. Target acquired is something I'm experimenting with. It is just a separate multiplier with Deadhead, which is just really strong. Primed shred here. I love the fire rate. You could definitely go more into fire rate if you wanted to, although generally I didn't either invest in like the bond mod that does it, reinforced bond, or like a Warframe like Gauss or Harrow who can buff that for you. When you have 100% ammo efficiency, again, fire rate is a disproportionately very strong stat. And then here is a little sharpshooter build I did for fun. I think sharpshooter is a very underrated mod. With the Perigale being able to dispose of enemies super quickly, and you're headshotting any with Perigale, getting 15 energy on max rank. Mine's not max rank yet. Getting 15 energy per headshot kill for whatever reason, whatever kind of build you might be doing, I think is really fun. And the Perigale being a uniquely strong sniper rifle that can kind of be treated again like a machine gun, really like an LMG, per its design, I think is very interesting. And I think sharpshooter is disproportionately good on the Perigale. If you wanted to use this as some sort of like weird utility weapon, it's absolutely totally possible here. And I would like to see it used at some point. Maybe I'll use it like a Sevogoth build or something. I'm not really sure, but yeah, building this weapon is not particularly difficult. It's just like, what balance do you want, right? You can have a build without blast, and that will do so much damage. It's insane. There are really good mods for every single slot. Again, that's kind of what a build would look like, sort of like this, right? Without blast, but you'll see in the gameplay footage, like getting blast onto this weapon, getting any kind of AoE, it starts to become even more insane. Again, your goal with a sniper in Warframe is to remove the weaknesses of the sniper, which are that it's single target and that it's kind of slow. Gale Force helps you with its speed, and then Blast helps you with the single target, right? And so the Perigale is one of the better snipers in the game, I'd say. It's just that the modding for Blast process is one that is really frustratingly bad and mathematically not sound at all, and just feels bad to do. But again, drop your builds if you have any suggestions. Go ahead and drop them. I don't think my builds are perfect exactly, but these are the kind of mods you should be investing in. Again, aptitude, if you have a primer, I really strongly recommend. Like, it gives you so much damage because these snipers generally have like pretty good numbers behind them. All right, before we get to the tier list ranking, I've got some synergies and use cases for the Perigale. I'll talk about some Warframes, but you know, these aren't the only ones, obviously. Kind of apply these concepts to whichever Warframe or ability or synergy you want to try. So, starting with Sight 09, I think the Perigale is strongest when you can kind of just sit in Gale Force and treat the weapon like a turret. Kind of makes sense for a sniper rifle. Sight already has tons of built-in synergies, like seek damage, evades headshots, resupplies, double damage with sniper rifles, all that good stuff. But really, the insane wall hacks and punch through from seek, I mean, you don't really have to move from your current position very often, which is hugely beneficial because Warframe's kind of intense speed and movement, they don't play super nice with the marksmanship requirements of the Perigale and snipers in general sometimes. So it's way easier to like maintain Gale Force than it is to sit, focus, and get that first headshot. If you're in Gale Force, you're kind of already allowed to miss a few shots because you get 4 seconds to land a new headshot to refresh the buff. All of this combined with just having the built-in blast rounds from resupply, meaning you get a lot more modding freedom. And I would say that really the Perigale is probably strongest at Sight 09. It's one of the stronger synergies. You just get kind of everything the Perigale needs, and allows you to really excel and lets Sight 09 use a sniper that isn't neutralizer, so you can have a helmet slot ability there too as well to make it even stronger. Next is Ivara. Ivara is able to like slow down and set up similar to Sight 09, but moving around with rolls and dash wire is a lot more suitable. You know, it's the way the Perigale kind of wants to be played. Ivara has great Prowl headshot multiplier, a kit that feels really good to complement the Perigale. It's a little bit slower, she's a little bit slower, right? Usually Ivara and sniper rifles, they share the same complaints. They're slower and clunky, but the Blast Perigale is able to turn Ivara into this like walking rolling fortress, especially with like Zada's Whisper or Roar. You're able to add like so much damage, and the Perigale is, while being a little bit slow and clunky, if you get set up, which is something Ivara likes to do in her optimal missions, you are able to just turn yourself into the same kind of turret that Sight would turn himself into. It's granted not nearly as good as Seek, having 20 meters of wall hacks, but it's still really strong, and I would recommend it a lot. I think it's super fun. If you learn how to move around with your dash wires, it's going to be a really good time. You get that crit damage as well, which helps from the augment empowered quiver, and that will help balance out that overinvestment into crit chance that usually ends up happening because of the way modding is, and you can just get so much damage that way. And lastly, we're talking about Gauss. Gauss already has everything. This frame is very strong, but he does work with the Perigale insanely well. You give him his thermal transfer augment on thermal sunder to get built-in blast. So again, that's like 2 modding slots saved minimum. All the stats from Redline help the Perigale become a machine gun, so you can just kind of hold M1 and drool all over yourself. They also make it more forgiving, right? Stats from Redline, because you're able to reload faster, so you're going to be moving a lot faster with Gauss in order to keep his battery up, but you can also reload quicker because of Redline, and so it kind of balances out really well. Throw on Zada's Whisper, throw on Roar, whatever damage you want. Use Gauss's insane movement to get around the map. You'll have a great time. Mach Rush and the Perigale are really not too hard to use because Mach Rush is a very like horizontal movement. The Perigale really only gets super hard to use when you're using like less conventional means of moving. In this case, Gauss is just running really fast, right? And you can also like tap cast it to move around quickly. You can also freeze enemies with Thermal Thunder, whatever tap hold. And that's really good because it lets you get the initial headshots and also gives you that crit damage multiplier that cold provides. So Gauss, I don't want the misconception to be that like you have to play slow if you're using the Perigale or a sniper. Gauss is able to use this weapon really quick. My only recommendation would be to turn off the sniper scope HUD thing, as if you're moving around at Mach 16, it's going to be really uncomfortable to have that kind of limited POV. So grading the Perigale, I'm gonna have to put this puppy into the B tier. I think that its output is genuinely close to A tier, if not A tier itself. It's just that this weapon comes with a whole lot of hassle that most weapons don't come with, right? And this is something I like as a player. The Perigale is one of my favorite weapons in the game, if not my single favorite. I think it's really fun to use. I think the fact that, again, it punishes you, but also rewards you aptly, equally, proportionally, is really nice. However, there are weapons with even stronger output that are in the S tier, mind you, right? These are like, there's A tier weapons above this weapon, better than this weapon, that give better output with zero of the hassle that the Perigale kind of forces you to go through, right? And so for me, the Perigale is a very strong weapon, and you know, maybe if there's a world where everyone's on mouse and keyboard and everyone is aiming for headshots, and maybe the game was a little bit less fast, right, where the Perigale becomes like an A tier definitive weapon, but to me it's just B tier. The hoops you have to jump through are pretty annoying. That modding weakness of just really needing, really should try to get blast on there if you can. Again, I did show you some ways to kind of get around that, but again, you can only make up for so many weaknesses that this weapon has, and I think B tier is where I'm going to place it. If you placed it in A tier in your head, then I totally understand that. Again, this is one of my favorite weapons, but it's got a lot of weaknesses. The hassle you have to go through, it's just not really characteristic of most Warframe weapons, and so they're weapons with higher output with none of the hassle involved, and so that's why I'm going to pop it in B tier. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Love you lots. If you have any weapon suggestions you would like to see, let me know. Any video suggestions in general, let me know. I love you so much. Thank you for your viewership, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.